Welcome back to Well, What Do You Know? Today we're diving into part 2 of my conversation with Rob Luther. If you missed part 1, Rob shared his Iowa roots, how he got started in coaching, and his unexpected path into school administration. In this episode we go deeper. Rob talks about his coaching philosophy, the leadership lessons he's learned over the years, and how he balances it all with being a dedicated father and husband. It's full of stories, insights, and wisdom from someone who's truly done it all, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. As a coach, I completely agree with you that the games that we remember most are the L's,
the losses,
right?
For sure.
Why do you think that is?
I think because when we win, at least for me in football, one is I love the game. I think it's the greatest game in history, but you only play it once a week. Mm-hmm. So when you lose on Friday, you have the whole week to just try to get that out of your system. Yeah. And I've never been good at that. I'm a rear view mirror. I love the Ted Lasso, be a goldfish, 8 seconds, and our memory just fades. But I think it just, as adults and in charge of a program, you put it on your shoulders because it's just how did that happen? What could we have done different? It's not so much when you get beat, the 36-6 and you just knew you were outmatched. That happens on Friday nights. It's the ones where usually you have the game in hand or should have won. Right. We had one to open at Ankeny against Northwest this year that were one play, and now we're number one in the state at 5-0, 4-0. But I think that the wins. So as coaches, we get into the coach's office Friday night, and we walk through that door. Man, we're on to the next game. It doesn't matter how great the way we try to enjoy it, but you're definitely on. Where when you lose, it's that whole week, and it's just how we bouncing this back, and what do we got to change, and how'd that happen? I think you expect to win. You expect to win. Yeah,
you do, and you have to be an actor when you get to practice on Monday or see those kids next, because you got it's over.
Let's focus. And it's not inside you.
No, it kills you on the inside.
And you know what I've noticed too is kids are so much more resilient than adults. I mean, they just love to play the game, and they lost. Now I want to see who I'm playing. I get to go out next Friday and play again. Kids are so much better than adults about that. Right, for sure.
Right. To me, it was always. I felt like I let those. In my case, it was girls that I loved so much, and I let them down.
Why couldn't I get you that? I say all the time. Yeah. I go to just some horrible losses that we had, and even in the 8-man that we were. I mean. An off-the-field loss, which we may get to, that we don't even get in the playoffs our first year because miscommunication, not being honest, didn't know the rule, but we were sure we were going to get in the playoffs, and then it just changed on us. So now we're telling these kids we're going to build this Baxter Bolt brand, and we have a good team. We didn't have a good team, but now you're not playing for anything. Those are hard to tell. Yeah. Or being in the wrong coverage on the last play of the game and not knocking the ball down because we should have had, 3 guys on the goal line instead of standing in umbrella cover 4, whatever it is. And you just think, why? How did I make that decision? How did that happen? You can't get past those.
No, those are the things that keep me up at night.
Me too.
The decisions that I made that backfired or didn't work out. Yeah. And because I had a lot of fun coaching, a lot of great memories, but those aren't the ones that I dwell on.
Yeah.
I'd be happier if I did.
And you just remember the losses.
Yep.
You do.
You do. So tell me, you said that you coached for the entire time of your coaching at CMB. It was CMB.
Until the split.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know it was Collins Community School. It was Maxwell Community School. They merged in '83. First year was '84.
Yep.
Then when did the CMB sharing start?
The first football was '88. Okay. So I was actually in college at the time. So I was staying in touch with Coach Sullivan and some of the freshman stuff. But I just thought that's weird. I didn't know much. But it was 1988, and they just started sharing football.
Just for numbers?
I think so. Yes, it was a numbers, and they I think they were really innovative. I think Sullivan and Seals kind of were very good visionaries and saying, hey, we're going to crumble this foot. We can't sustain, and there was no 8-man football then.
Right.
We can't sustain this. So how those two got together, and they're two of, I think, my greatest mentors. So just to have them behind that. But by the time I got back, so when I got back from New York, it was probably 93, and I was coming up to a few games, but that was CMB at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then, so they started football sharing. And then at what point was it all sports sharing?
I think it went, and this may not be 100% accurate, but I think wrestling, so it was the numbers things, you know?
Yeah.
But what I do know, when I got there in 97, fall of 97, I don't think we were sharing golf. Some of those, I don't know if it was cross country. Maybe
I don't know.
Collins Maxwell.
Yeah.
But we were sharing most things at varsity. Pretty soon after I got there, we started getting down into the junior high sports. So I felt like, hey, we're doing this here, and it's really costing us because our kids aren't building those relationships in their 7th and 8th grade years, or the camps, or the summers, and we're competing against each other. And that happened really easily. I think it just took some of us saying it's the right thing to do here.
Yeah. When I got there in 07, all high school sports were combined.
Was basketball, junior high basketball yet?
No middle school sports were. Well,
okay.
yeah, not that I remember. I just thought it was ridiculous that we competed against each other.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, at freshmen, we're supposed to be teammates.
I think it was what maybe was the beginning of the end, that there was always going to be that little bit of division of we don't want to lose our school. We don't want to lose our identity.
Yeah.
And as long as we have I get our high school teams are playing, but at least we're the Collins Maxwell Panthers for junior high track.
Right.
It's like it needed some bigger picture thinking.
Yes. Yeah. So fast forward several years, and that's really the thinking then that drove them apart, right? That identity, missing identity.
Yeah. Here. It's a little bit of a weight to bear because I replay that a lot and think, again, like a bad loss. What could I have done different to make this different? Well, a year and a half before the split, we did a lot of work in community meetings and board meetings to talk about whole grade sharing, not consolidating.
Right.
That's just, and one is financially, it made sense. Staffing made unbelievable sense for the electives and what sheer numbers, what you're able to do.
Right.
I knew all along the two big hurdles were going to be the travel and that we're not right in each other's pocket. I mean, that was probably 18 miles or
something like that. Yeah,
it
was a 25-minute
enough.
bus trip.
It was not. It was over 3:30. It wasn't a great bus trip. I mean, I knew that was going to be, but then the identity piece. Who are we? And we just can't lose our schools in these little towns.
Right.
So we did all the work on that, and then they did an outside agency came in to say, well, it comes down. You hear this? It comes down to who's getting the high school and who's getting the middle school. And at that point in time, we had much better facilities. Now they've really upgraded their facilities now. Yeah, but at that point in time, and not just athletic facilities, but high school and just the building space and stuff. We were going to have two separate elementaries, so Collins was going to keep the elementary. Maxwell would have the middle school, and Baxter would have the high school. I felt cautious, but very optimistic this was going to happen. You always worry, but the boards had met multiple times together. We were all in the room with communities together. A little bit of pushback here and there, but definitely overwhelming feel that this is what we want to do.
Right.
Then it gets muddy.
Yeah.
Then at a board meeting that their board meeting, it just kind of came out that we're pulling the plug on any of this.
Yeah.
Not the athletic sharing,
right,
but all of this.
Right.
Then our board factually made the decision, if that's not good enough for you, we shouldn't share.
Yeah.
Sports. So, and when that happened, I believe it was April or May maybe of I think it was a spring month, because I knew then the decision was made, it's too late to do anything. So we're going to go you lived it. We're going to go that whole first year, that last year, his CMB.
Yeah.
Tell me the worst year.
Yeah.
And we had great kids at that time in both buildings. We had talented football athletes. And I said, this is the football part of that. So we can go back to some of that, but we had a really tough front end schedule. Might have been Rolling Stone. I know it was Nevada. If we don't win these first couple, we're going to lose the team, and we lose two close ones. And we kind of came together at the end, knowing it was the end, and had a big win in our last game, and some of that. But that was a tough year. And for a guy that is a Maxwell kid, a Collins Maxwell graduate, a CMB coach, and a Baxter principal, that was like just saying, what just happened.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought a lot about you during that whole transition. And just for what you just said, I mean, you were it. I mean, you and Lori Fricky,
Yeah.
who I believe was our AD at the time, right?
Yeah.
She was a CM grad and lived in Baxter, and
had the ties too.
Yeah, and you two, I know it was difficult, but you two really led us as Baxter then into the future.
I'll always remember us going down with the reveal video and driving.
Oh, how cool was that?
Campbell and Keith Murphy and all that. That was a fun day. Just you and I had that as in our memory bank forever. Yeah. I think I knew when it happened a couple things. I knew, well, Baxter has to survive this, and you're either going to die or grow this. Whether it was 8-man football, which that was a big piece of that because that was a change. And then all athletics, can we do this on our own?
Right.
And we didn't have a choice. I mean, it was either let's go all in. And at that point in time, I'm a Maxwell grad, and I love CMB, but I can't look in the rear view. The other part of that is I'm sure my name wasn't the best in that other town at that time because I was the face or one of the leaders of the Baxter Bolts.
Yeah, right.
So we did have some success early as we had a lot of success early as the Baxter Bolts, and they didn't. Now they have a one state.
It's even out.
Yeah, for sure. But you know how that goes. Then those and since then, that's been a division. I do Logson's Grocery in town. I grew up with Jay and Tom at that grocery store. I mean, I was 4 years old and doing parlay cards in the back, or fourth grade doing parlay cards in the back of that grocery store. They were at my retirement party, and we've remained unbelievably great friends.
That's really good to hear.
Because some of the Maxwell ties were never back again. But everybody's got to make their own decisions, and the decision was made, and then we just did it, man. That Baxter Bolts.
Yeah, I thought it was, and it's great to see Lori Fricky, being an administrator at CM.
Now she's So time heals a lot of wounds.
It does. I just thought the treatment on both sides was a little unfair at the time because we had no choice.
That's it.
The decisions were made, and we have to make the
most of them. We have elected officials, and the elected officials make decisions, and they listen to everything, and they make informed. And I'm not even saying what our board did was wrong. I will never say it because I was in on a lot of those really, really tough, hard conversations.
Right.
And it was about the future of our town, our school, and our kids.
Right.
And that's what they made. And now, outside of me just always thinking what if, Baxter Bolts is a good brand. We have an excellent school right there for a small school. Our sports are very good and excellent in some. I mean, there's a lot of good things happening there.
Right.
I will always say I don't think they know how good it could have been as CMB Raiders.
Right.
If we're sitting here in 2025-6, I think it could have been something pretty special.
I agree. So let's switch gears a little bit. We've talked a lot about as a football coach and things you've done. Let's talk about your principal career.
Okay.
Because you're a great leader for me. You're a great mentor for me. You said the first years were rough. You definitely got your feet under you. At the end of my tenure at Baxter, you were still the principal. You had really, I thought, you immerse yourself into professional development and getting better and what the classroom should look like, building relationships. You've said it 100 times here, but you were also big into building relationships for teachers and kids, and getting kids involved. That was one of your...
That was really big for me.
Yeah.
And that was probably big for me early because it's what I knew.
Yeah.
I love small school because I was involved in everything. So even when I wasn't a very good educational leader, I think that I was still visible. I think I was still good at relationships. I just didn't know how to build a school in a building educationally.
Right.
There's one thing to have a great culture, and I prided myself even early on. And it was hard as a football coach because that drives that wedge a little bit already, So Neil Seals was a superintendent who hired me, and he was one of the greatest leaders I've ever been around. But if you knew Neil, it was definitely... Neil Seals was the leader of this building. Neil Seals was in charge of this building. So even as I took the principal job, it almost felt a little assistant principal to me. Yeah. And I'm not saying that's bad, and maybe hindsight it was great because Neil knew he needed to be that strong person for me. So, great relationship there. He taught me a lot about integrity and work ethic and how you do this job as far as what you're putting into it. I don't know. It's always work smarter, not harder.
Right.
So I felt like I was working harder early on with all those hats and trying to do it, but I wasn't doing the right work.
Right.
When Neil left, they hired Matt Patton, who now you've worked for as well.
Right.
And Matt was one of my biggest influences. One, he had a coaching background, and he kind of knew me and about me, and really pushed the right buttons and pulled the right strings to say how good of an educational leader I could be. I always said, and it kind of came full circle, Padge, with some instructional coaches and things, but when I started, I was a manager of that building. I mean, I was the second manager. I was just managing. Mm-hmm. Matt Patton comes in, and I start to learn how to be an educational leader. Mm-hmm. And I start thinking on that 30,000-foot view and what we're teaching and the curriculum and our grading system. And I mean, I go on and on, advisories and all these things, RTI or, whatever, bolt time, the things that had to get in place to help our kids grow. Because what I was seeing early on is kids were leaving Baxter, and they was great. They had all these great experiences, but they got to college and maybe weren't quite as prepared from a small district standpoint as they should have been. Mm-hmm. Donna Aiken's pocket, she was phenomenal as a high school English person, but maybe we didn't have Donna teaching the rest of our teachers enough about what her room looks like.
Right.
So we did a lot of that sharing of ideas. We did a lot of sharing in the classroom. I would cover class, and teachers would go in and watch people that were way better than I ever was, but let's watch what good teaching is. But Matt really... he was the one that kind of changed that. So from Matt to Todd Martin, who's the superintendent at Sadell, I felt like I was really pushing as an educational leader. And then the reform kind of came to these instructional coaches. Yeah. And teachers learn better from other teachers and people who have done it. Agreed completely. If you have good instructional coaches. So we did, and I stepped back a little bit, and I kind of felt towards the end maybe I was more of that manager culture piece again, because we had some good instructional coaches. But that system's kind of failed us now.
Yeah, and I will say that I think you were doing it right. Before they did the instructional coaches thing, you sub in a classroom so our great teachers can go watch teachers that need to improve, or teachers that can learn.
Both ways.
Yeah, both ways. And learn that way. And then when we have those professional developments, let's talk about it. Let's figure out, what was so great in her classroom? What needs improvement, right? Then the state does the instructional coach thing and says, okay, let's take your two best teachers out of the classroom.
Take them out of the classroom.
I never understood that, Coach.
No.
Never understood that.
Me neither. Did not. And then one of the responses I got at that point in time was, those people are kind of a little bit burnt out and need something different. And I'm like, well, if they're burnt out there and need something different, then that's really not the person we want, because that person should have more juice than anybody else we have on staff. I think the idea, what they wanted to do was some of the things we were doing. And I was never a big, here comes nothing, it's AEA. We're not bringing AEA in for 4 hours and we're all going to sit here and just try to keep our eyes open.
Right.
That's not PD to me. What's PD is putting you with the other two math teachers for 2 hours with not a solid agenda, but an agenda what you want to get better at, and how do people that teach math handle that. Or let's put just great teachers together. And we did some even from elementary, just as far as how to plan. How do you even set your week? And there's so many little things. I remember Jason Aker and I did one of my favorites. We went around, it was sort of, you said that 2-minute dating thing. I remember going around and doing like 15-minute what you want, and we just bounced classroom to classroom, and you just walked in and there was somebody facilitating, and some of the best conversations, because we're all professional.
Right.
If we're not doing our job, it's a choice, because we can help you get better if that's really what you want to do and be.
Right.
I always said the number one job of a principal in every district in every state is hire good people. Because when you hire the Eric Padgetts and the Donna Aikens and Kristen Luthers of the world, look at all the other things that the principal can work on to help the building get better in culture, and or take care of the 5% of the problems and be the face with the parents that sometimes teachers don't want to be. I was good at that, I think.
It's just like coaching. Look what you can do if the players already know the fundamentals, right?
So I said the two things. Everybody says, I was talking, I'm the president of the Iowa Football Coach Association for the next 2 years, and it's like, how do we bridge the gap? There's a huge gap in 8-man. There's a huge gap in 5A football between the haves and the have-nots. There's no magic pill, but it starts with youth programs And it starts with hiring great coaches, like hiring great teachers, and make sure you have enough all hands on deck. And then you got to have a summer break. Then you got to have strength and conditioning. Doesn't mean you're going to win a state championship, but you can start closing the gap when schools want to financially and time-wise commit to that staff because it's important to you. Because that's what happens. They hire a great coach, and he gets 4 or 5 coaches, but then they don't give him all the other things he needs, and he moves on down the road.
Right.
Nothing changed.
Right.
So, there's a gap in football right now that's a concern, I think, across the state.
Yeah.
Safety. I mean, you see 7 schools drop the game this fall already.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
7 schools, I think it's 7 from the time the year started, are now not playing football. Well, that caused a lot of problems for schedules.
Yes, it does.
Caused a lot of problems for that town. Caused a lot of problems for the 8 kids on the team who really love football and don't have a team Friday night. I mean, there's problem after problem. So that's reaction. What could we do to be proactive in this? So that's some of the conversations I'm having right now.
This episode of the Well, What Do You Know podcast is brought to you by P Squared Design, where your memories become keepsakes. Imagine this: Grandma's voice reading a bedtime story, even when she's miles away. At P Squared Design, we record those special moments, like grandparents reading to their grandkids, and turn them into lasting treasures. We create a beautiful bookmark with a QR code that, when scanned, plays that recording anytime, anywhere. It's story time, on demand, with the people who matter most. Visit psquareddesign.com to explore our work and start creating something unforgettable. That's psquareddesign.com. P Squared Design. Your story, your voice, your keepsake.
Let's get right back into our conversation with Rob Luther. I know that you had to deal with some tragedy as a principal. You have to deal with discipline, maybe some staff members that also need discipline, right? Tragedies, things like that, and once in a while you get to celebrate good.
Right.
How did those? We don't have to get into specifics if you don't want to, but it might be nice to remember those people. But how did that affect you?
Well, you don't ever bounce back from that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think before I get into a little bit of those specifics, I think as an administrator, for anybody listening, I mean, I don't know there's really work-life balance. I'm not a fan of that term. You just do your job, and you have a job as a dad, you have a job as a husband, you have a job as a principal, you have a job as a football coach, and but you do the job that's needed to get the job done. But I would sit there many days, and you know this because I'd come down and see you. And you probably don't even know this. You get out of your office, and I got to have 15 minutes of conversation about the Cardinals or the Yankees or the Vikings.
Right.
And I just need to see some good teaching, and I need to see kids on task and learning because I know what it's going to be. Teachers, for the most part, you chose your day. I'm planning my day. I plan my activity. I'm going to know what kind of juice I'm bringing, but you have your day. It's a school administrator. I pull up I was always a morning guy, a half hour early going, I don't know what today's going to bring.
Right.
I'm at everybody else's mercy, and it's probably going to be some negative.
Yeah.
So
mostly reactionary.
100%. I can't play. The things you can put in place help some of that, but it doesn't. In my last, I loved my graduation speech every year. It's kind of something I really just kind of try to reflect on with that class. And my last one at Baxter, I mentioned those kids by name that we lost. Because whether it was a disease or an accident or self-inflicted, whatever it was, they're not with us anymore. And we had many graduations where that chair was empty for different reasons. And I think it hits you worse in a small school.
Yeah.
Because it's still horrible at a big school. It's still horrible anywhere. But when we knew every kid. Yeah. I'm going to funerals of a kid who took his own life, and you don't ever quit asking what could we have done different or better. And through counseling, maybe there was nothing you were going to do different. But I still want to call a different play on fourth down. Yeah. I still want to grab him. And then you think of the unbelievably great kids. A girl who lost her life in an accident. I just saw those parents at the Casey Center at an event. I don't remember if Shane Gillis or one of the others. Yeah. Unbelievable kid. And I think you have to have strong faith. Yeah. You have to have strong faith in our line of work, I think. But you don't ever forget those. And there's a great parallel I haven't really thought about between remembering the winning and the losing. Yeah. Because you remember those. And it's funny, you go into into crisis mode and you go into leader mode, and you know what you do for the first week or two is take care of the other 250 kids in our school and teachers. And everything I was doing was to take care of my staff and to take care of our kids who were hurting. And then our grief happens usually 3 weeks later, 3 years later.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
And did you have to make it purposeful to give yourself time to grieve and to get over it?
Yeah, I think. Well, let's be honest. I mean, it's counseling. It's finding. Whether it's your own family. One or two of those Kristen was involved with me.
Right.
That did help more than the first ones, where you're kind of just coming in, and I didn't have that. That rock. But yeah, you have to be intentional. So no self-care, and if you're struggling, you got to get yourself taken care of before
Absolutely.
everybody. You better take care of yourself. Or
put the mask on yourself before you put it on your kids,
exactly.
Right? Airplane talk.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And that's hard to do because
I
I can tell you on a couple of those tragedies, I can remember just sitting in that office after a day that I felt was great, and it was a really good day, and then realize it wasn't a good day for me because I just hit it.
Yeah.
And you're walking through, there's nothing like cleaning out a locker of a kid.
My. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Those things are just, it's just, you hope it just never happens. And
yeah.
what you do when you see other things in other districts, I was one of those guys that reached out a lot. I know there's nothing I can do, but I just want to tell you, Principal X, I've walked it. And anything, even if it's an email to me that you're just reflecting, you're going to have to take care of yourself, because it's the coaching. What could we have done different? And some of them are not. You're just so sad that unbelievably great person, life ended too soon. But that's how I ended. I mean, was part of that last graduate. Those never leave. Yeah.
So I think I know who you're talking about with the girl that died in the car accident. That was a year before I got to Baxter.
Okay.
But her loss and her parents' faith changed my life.
Yeah.
Because they started the youth group.
Yeah, which was massive at Baxter with Bay. What you did with Bay, and that great people.
Yeah,
unbelievably great people.
Yeah.
And neither one of us have had to deal with that. Sometimes I don't know how you deal with that as a parent. When you always say no one should ever have to bury their own child,
right?
But until you do, my best friend in high school, going all the way back to Maxwell, he was 2 years younger than me. Tight. I lived with his family for a while under a tough circumstance. Was killed in an accident where he fell off a cliff in Maxwell. There was actually a 20-foot cliff going into a creek, and fell and killed himself. A girl fell on top of him, and he saved her life. So that was really, really difficult time for me. I was away to college and dealing with that.
Wow.
And at the same time, my grandfather took his own life in a late stage of dementia.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that, I don't know if it helped me down the road, but it's what we talked about, what shapes you. All of those little things definitely shape you. But I know how that can rock small towns.
Right.
So as a principal, it's like, well, I got to lead us through that, not, man, I miss this kid, and what do we.
Well, we talked about Lori Fricky, who I hope to get on this podcast actually eventually, but you were talking about how it affects a small town differently. The sudden loss of her husband, even though he wasn't a teacher, wasn't a coach, didn't really he helped the school in every way he possibly could, but you wouldn't say he was part of the school technically, right? He was, but he wasn't technically. His loss affected that community
for sure.
I think back to the loss of Joel Petermeyer.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. Staff member's spouse.
Yeah.
And people don't think of that when they think of a principal and what they have to deal with, but you did have to deal with that.
Yeah, I just think that, and I'm not advocating it's all about small schools, but if that happens at Ankeny High School, and Friday night there's a man that I don't know, but it was unbelievable, the support before the game. Everybody was in orange at the football game, and he's in the late stages of cancer. They rally, but what's the connection?
Yeah.
When you're at Baxter, there's a connection. Sometimes a really, really close connection. You that's what small schools and small communities are about. They just rally and rally and rally. But when one happens, you lose something. You lose a piece. for sure.
I remember how much it meant to, this is a kudos to you, but I remember how much it meant to Lori and her kids to have, they were, you honored them before the game one time. And just, that was very special to them. And it was stuff like that that set you apart as an administrator and a coach.
Well, thank you.
So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your job now, what the future holds. So you mentioned many jobs you're doing right now.
I'm getting a lot of little side hustles. So I can place and go. Actually, 2 of them are at a golf course. So
good.
My daughter's golf course. So I see her from time to time. I don't really want to work a ton. I do it for some free golf.
Right.
A day a week, maybe at one or the other. And then I picked up this thing at Casey Center to usher all these events.
That's awesome.
I live 10 minutes from there, so it's like, well, I'll just run down there and check out Paul McCartney or whoever it is. Yeah. But the big one is I'm the OC at Ankeny, and there was that was really hard for me. When you get that when you're at one place and that's who you are.
Yeah.
You kind of just think I'm going to go and that's going to be it, whether it's Ken Winkler or Jerry Pizzetti or whoever that has just always been that. I just felt that at the time I needed to cut ties with Baxter for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. Not my love of Baxter, but if I'm around subbing and I'm around coaching and I'm around, it's always going to say that's not the way Rob did it.
Right.
Or somebody in that role is going to feel looked over their shoulder, and it's a great place and they have great people. So I knew that last year was going to be my last year. I wasn't sure I was done coaching, and I just thought I'll just see what's rolling. And it's so ironic that around the time I told our kids at the end of the year I was going to be done, Jeff Bowers, the head coach at Ankeny, his wife had taught with my wife. I'd known him when he was with the Jets, so we've ran in circles enough. In one of those days,
plus an FCS teacher.
He was at Baxter. Were you at Baxter?
Yeah.
That's right. So when
right.
as everybody in the NFL does, not for long, he got fired from the Jets,
right.
And was back and didn't have a job. And I think we hired him as a junior high basketball coach, maybe.
Yeah, right.
And FCS, which he's not an FCS guy, but he just did the long term for us.
Right.
I was subbing in Ankeny, and I get this text from Jeff, and he says, "Are you ever in Ankeny subbing?" He hadn't seen me that day. I said, "As a matter of fact, I'm in Ankeny today." He goes, "I'd love for you to stop down and see you." Like come down, they had lost their OC that week, who had resigned. And he said, "Would you be interested?" I said, "Well, I would be interested, but I'm going to do a lot of due diligence, Jeff, because I have more offensive assistants at Ankeny than I did all of CMB it's a college type program.
Right.
I just want to be sure I was ready for it. I could give to the position what I needed to." And I'm not a couch potato. I'm not a guy that just I love to golf. I love to travel. I love to coach. It's in me, and I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
I've learned. I've said this to people in Ankeny, and I'm sure they go. I said, "You are a little Baxter," because I've subbed in so many places and been around so many teams, and this culture there at Ankeny feels like it did at Baxter to me. And our football players and the respect and the love, and there's so many parallels that I don't know if I'll do it again next year. I just when you're in this seat at this age, it's like we'll just reevaluate. But I'm having a blast this year.
Good.
And it's been a good year for me. I'm still doing junior high track at Baxter. That's the one thing I'm holding on to. It's crazy. About 3 years ago, I didn't have anybody, and I kind of even joked. I said, "I'm going to take this, but I want this to be my retirement gig."
Right.
So I took the boys and girls junior high track.
Yeah.
And I've had a blast with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to do that again. And just every season, you get that. You just reevaluate. Is it right for me? Is it right for them? And we'll see where we're at. But yeah, doing well.
People don't understand, too, go back to what you said about kind of needing to cut ties. Because for me, it was, I don't want Kyle, my replacement, to think that I'm looking over his shoulder or anything like that. Not that he would think it, and people don't care. But then you wrestle with, I don't want people to think that I'm abandoning them.
100%. Yeah. Because so Zach Hasselbrink got the football job after I think I was in my 29th year at Baxter CMB. One of my best friends, and I'm so glad he did that. He wasn't sure if he was going to stay basketball, and it's like we've had some conversations, and if we have, he's initiated them. We played golf a few times and kind of just talked. And it's interesting, they're using some of our same terminology,
sure,
same things, And I have looked at a film or two and just given just a little. You don't need to look over my shoulder. You know better than I did it, Zach.
Right.
The things that you believe in probably are better than what we were doing. So you get that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I left. It was time. It was just time.
Yeah.
If you're not in the weight room, in the school, dealing with the culture, dealing with all that, and all those things that matter to programs.
Right.
I wasn't going to be that guy that just showed up in August and coached on Friday nights. I just wasn't going to do that.
No.
So, but I definitely know what you're talking about. But it's been really hard for me. I mean, that first night out on the Ankeny sideline was so out of body because you're just muscle memory. Baxter sidelines is where I'm supposed to be. So 4 weeks in, it's a little bit better.
How long did it take you then after that first game to look up the Baxter score?
I wasn't off the field yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I get it.
It was tough because Zach had told me they were going to pick up a week 0 game. And we actually scrimmaged Valley in the afternoon, so my evening was open. And I just was wrestling with, I don't want to be the center of attention, but I'd love to just watch that and then be able to just pat those guys on the back and wish them. Then it turned out they didn't play week 0.
Okay.
So if one of us loses the playoffs and the other's still in, I'm sure Hass or I will go watch the other play. So that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah. How's the transition been back to 11-man?
Well, just make sure 11 guys are on the field.
Yeah.
Add those 3 players. I think some
you guys stand over there.
Some
but
of
be on
my
the field.
staff a little bit. Maybe in the backs of their minds were questioning, what's this 8-man coach doing? And until you say, listen, I've coached football since 92 and only 6 years or 7 years were 8-man. So all those other years I coached 11-man football.
Right.
And I was head coach in the Shrine game in 2020 and 2021, and we knew what we were doing. We're going to be okay. I'm going to lean on you guys. And it took just a little bit, but we put so much time in the summer. It was an easy transition. It was an easy one.
So you've mentioned several people. I like to end with this. You've mentioned Sullivan. You mentioned Seals, Patton, Kristen. Give me that mentor that you haven't mentioned yet, or maybe you want to expand on.
We hit the ones from the time you probably knew me or close. I mean, we've been.
I've never met Mr. Sullivan, but I've heard you speak of him a lot. Yeah.
I think there's 2. So I had one, and he's passed. That was my theater mentor at college, named Jay Fields. So that probably stoked my passion for theater, which he was the one that said, hey, you need theater degrees and you're pretty talented, but you never know. And you're probably not talented. Get your education, because that's what theater people do. We teach, whether it's at some level, whatever. But my biggest one that we had, those 2 guys I would just say were my mentors. But my first, Brad Zelinovich, who's the football coach at Southeast Polk, won 4 in a row, and I hope he will not win 5 in a row, personally. His dad, I got to know right away when I got that job at Goodroll. And he was a successful football coach in Chicago and in Des Moines, and really grew what it meant to coach football. He was then turned into my principal at Goodroll for the 5 years I was there, was my principal. Still, I texted him 2 weeks ago, just, hey, he's still on the sidelines with his kid at Southeast Polk, just run around. But Mike Zelinovich, everybody on the east side knows Coach Z.
Sure, yeah, I know his name.
Yeah, so he was, those people that are more influential, and Tom Keating, I did mention him. I think about my basketball and coaching background without him stepping into those 2 years and being, everybody has, my mentor was Seals and Sullivan, but everybody has those people that you go, you know what, they pushed me in a direction that really changed the trajectory of my life. That's a powerful statement.
Right.
And they may not have been a mentor. They may have been a short-term somebody, whether it was a pastor, just different people that really just pushed enough that it truly changed the trajectory. And those are endless. All the staff at Baxter. Just everybody touches you, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we've been at this for about 2 hours. I think that should be about enough.
Wake up from your nap.
I'll split this and throw in some other stuff. So we'll keep you. I really appreciate it, Coach.
Yeah, it's been good catching up with you.
Yeah, you too. And I wish you all the success, man.
Thanks.
And eventually do this retirement thing the right way.
I will. I do. 2 or 3 more years. I'll be there.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Well, What Do You Know? The podcast created to tell people's stories. Everybody's got a story, and every story is worth saving.
The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Well What Do You Know podcast, P Square Design, Pagitech LLC, or our sponsors. The Well What Do You Know podcast, its parent company, and its sponsors are not responsible for any statements made by guests during the recording or publication of this episode.